If you've been listening to the Eat More Carbs podcast, you know that Reilly and I are both in our running era. To make sure that we're properly fueled for training, we're using both carbohydrates and 2 Before.
2 Before is an all-natural pre-workout designed to enhance athletic performance through the benefits of New Zealand blackcurrant berries. Studies have shown these berries to increase vasodilation and prime the body to kickstart muscle recovery. These antioxidant-rich berries have a sweet and tangy flavor and will level up your performance and recovery. Use code Reilly for 20% off 20 packs and multi-serve packs online at 2before.com.
This is the Eat More Carbs podcast. Hello and welcome back. This is the Eat More Carbs podcast. Jenna here with Reilly. Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about period recovery, things to do in the new year if you want to recover your period. Before we get into all of that good stuff though, Reilly, what's been going on with your week? What's your high and low?
This week has been super interesting. Like I shared in the past, we're in the middle of a move right now, and slowly but surely we're chugging along. We're getting things figured out. And if you have been watching this on Spotify or on YouTube, you might have seen my office like slowly progressing. We have things up on the walls now. So the Beatty family is moving along. I shared in a previous episode that moving is really stressful for me. I like when things are really organized, and that doesn't really happen with moving. I don't know about you, but in the past, like I've never had like a bathtub in my master bathroom. Do you have like a tub right now?
No, but I have in the past.
Okay. I haven't had one in like a really long time. Like we've always had one in like a second bath or something like that. And like we've always had a bath for Charlie, but we never really had like a bathtub in our master. And moving into this new house, we have like a really nice like bathtub. It's like a standalone bathtub. It has like this nice window next to it. We have some plants in the bathroom. And I thought, I'm going to take a bath because I've been kind of stressed right now. And I was like, you know what? I deserve a little like me time. Like I'm going to try to relax and like de-stress. So this was like a 2-hour experience, and honestly it did not turn out well because what ended up happening is I ended up overheating in the bathtub. I didn't realize like I haven't taken a bath in like such a long time, and I even put like bubbles in it, and I was like trying to like make it like a positive experience. I got out of the bath. I was like sweating. My skin was like completely red, and I had to like lay under the fan. Robbie like brought me a Gatorade. This ended up being like a 2-hour ordeal because I had overheated, and then I was so sweaty, and then because I was like so sweaty, I had to take a shower, and it ended up being really stressful.
Romanticizing your life gone so wrong.
So wrong. I was like, I'm gonna, I made my tea, I had a bubble bath, and then just been traumatized because of the bathtub. And I just thought it was just such a me thing to happen.
Okay, that is very you for sure. I will also say like, I am not a fan of baths. Like I love the idea of it, but the actual, like, I don't know the last time I took a bath either. So I don't blame you for just like sitting there and being like, I'm relaxing, this is gonna be fine, this is gonna be good. And then all of a sudden being like, I don't feel right.
I didn't, because what also happened is like I made the bathtub too hot, obviously, but I was like waiting for 20 minutes for it to cool off. And then I was like, you know what, I'll just like get in there. I was like, it's kind of like a hot tub. And then I had submerged too far, and I basically had like sunburn on my body from the bathtub.
How long were you actually in there?
I don't even think that long, like probably 15 minutes. I can't sit still. It's not like I was like relaxing in there for 2 hours. No.
I love the idea of you thinking that you were going to get in the bath and like it was going to be this relaxing experience. But like, I just imagine you getting in a bath and your mind just being like, I have 6 bajillion things to do. I'm getting out like within 5 minutes, maybe less.
Well, I was also thinking about this because I know that every time I go on a run, because I come back and I have 7 business ideas. But I was like, if I'm in the bath, I cannot use my phone. Like I cannot text Jenna. Like she's not going to get any Slack notifications from me because like I'm restricted to this because I can't use my phone in water. So I don't know.
Maybe I need boundaries, like
yes, but I don't agree with boundaries. Boundaries don't agree with me, obviously.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I'm sorry, that's not funny that you overheated, but it's like, it's so you.
So me. And I guess like maybe this could be my high, but it actually wasn't planning on being my high. But the good news now that anytime something goes wrong in my life, I'm like excited because I'm like, well, now I have a low for the podcast. Like now I have something to share with Jenna. So like at least when bad things, happen, at least I can come laugh about them with you and everybody listening.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. I'm so sorry that your bath time, your relaxing time was just interrupted by overheating. But the good news is you guys have a stellar water heater. Like y'all don't need to worry about cold water being an issue. Like you're going to have hot water.
Yeah, that is a positive. Yeah. I'm not worried about that situation anymore.
So there we go. The silver linings, right?
Silver linings. On the topic of like relaxing and hobbies, my high has to do with one of the hobbies that I've had for a really long time, and that is to do with reading. I love reading. I kind of stopped like in college because I was like reading so many research papers, so much like sports nutrition stuff. I was like, I cannot even look at a book right now. But recently, over the past couple of years, I started reading again, and I'm really excited because I've shared on the podcast before, but Fourth Wing is one of my favorite books, and the third book of the series is coming out this next week. The girlies have been like waiting for this book for like a year and a half, and the girlies are stressed, but we're also really excited.
This is the series that I had no idea had more than 3 books. So like I didn't understand like the fan base of being like, oh my gosh, it's the third book. I was like, it's the third and final book. That's so exciting. But then you had to share with me that no, there are actually several more books that everyone is going to have to wait for again. So how are you feeling about like the rush of having the next book, but then having to wait again to like know how the story ends?
Well, that's what like everybody's talking about, because I didn't realize like how many girlies are also feeling this way. Like I posted that I was doing my reread and preparation, and I didn't realize how many girlies are reading. I feel like the girlies in 2025 are reading, running, and eating carbs, and I'm freaking here for it. Have you finished the second book? I know that you're working on reading it.
I haven't.
And I knew you haven't. I knew you hadn't because you're not stressed. If you finish the book, you would be stressed like the rest of us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, probably. But here's the thing. I have a goal for reading this year. Like I'm making my SMART goals about reading more books, but I'm having such a hard time getting through the second one. And I know that's probably like a really controversial opinion, but I think like I like to read in the evening to help me like relax and get ready for bed. So I needed to read something that was like much more relaxing. And so I kind of put it on the back burner, but I picked up my Kindle the other day and I saw that I was like 60% of the way through it. And I was like, I just need to finish this. Like it would get me to one of my goals as far as finishing another book this year. And I need to work on it. I need to be better. So thanks for reminding me.
I didn't even realize this, but there is a warning at the beginning of the book. Like it is a thriller.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I missed that part. I really liked the first one. I thought the first one like moved really fast and stuff like that. And I really liked it. But the second one, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm having a harder time with it. And I know that's like probably everyone who listening is that knows the series is probably like, but that's just where I'm at right now.
Some people have had a harder time like getting through the second one. I know that you haven't finished it because you would not be traumatized. Well, this is actually why, I don't know if you saw, but in our business boot camp, we just added like a book club section because I'm having probably the same conversation with like 3 of our other boot camp members who are also just as excited about this book.
Running, reading, and eating carbs. So it's a great year so far.
It is. How are you doing though? How's your week? How's everything going?
Okay, this is interesting that we just said like what a year already, because my high is actually like the prospect of 2025, which I know that's not something that like actually happened, but we've had some really great meetings. We've had some really great like people come onto RBSN, like all of the things that are happening for like business wise and for personal life wise, like RBSN this year, 2025 is just gonna be a great year. And I'm just so excited about it. And like, that's my high. It's just like the possibility of what could happen in 2025. I'm just so excited about it. And so I'm already feeling like we've had such a good year so far and we're just starting. And then like, I don't know if every year I felt that way. So I'm just really excited about 2025 and everything that is to come.
Yes. You're also the luckiest person ever. So if you have good vibes right now, like I'm feeling very, very hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah, I am the luckiest person ever. I will say that for forever. Okay, my low is actually something that happened that's maybe like not so lucky, unfortunately. I went through my day, woke up, did my usual routine, had a delicious yogurt bowl, topped it with strawberries, blueberries, talked to people, probably talked to you, not really sure, can't really remember but how many people I talked to that day. Had to go out and run some errands later in the day, and I met up with my husband to go and do those things. And we're like standing there talking, and he just looks at me and he just kind of like leans in a little bit and he's like, I think you have something in your teeth. And I had blueberry stuck in my teeth. And I guess that the moral of the story is that I need to smile more to myself, like in the mirror when I use the bathroom or something like that, because like it had been there since breakfast. And this was like well into the afternoon, early evening. And it had hung out there all day long.
Oh no.
So I don't know how many people I talked to that saw that, but if you did, like, I am so sorry.
I also didn't see it because I would have let you know. I know.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe that was a day, like on a rare occasion, that we didn't talk face to face or something like that, because I know you would have been like, what are you doing?
I hate when that happens though, because you're like, no one could have told me this. Like, no one told me this.
Right? That's why I will, if we are ever talking and you have something in your teeth, I will let you know. I won't let you walk around like that because I know that feeling.
I promise though, it was probably worse than you thought.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
it was better than you it was better than you thought. It was better than you thought.
I hope so. I hope so. This week, this month is my race month, and you're getting closer and closer to your race day. So what does training look like this week? If you're new to the Eat More Carbs podcast, Reilly and I are both running half marathons. Mine is this week. Reilly's is early spring, so we're kind of coming up on both of these races now, and we're just providing a little bit of a training update, what's going on with us with our running, and where we're going.
You're going to laugh at this. You're going to laugh at this. This was actually going to be my high, but I thought it went nicely with our training update. But I've shared with you, and I've shared on this podcast in the past, that I'm doing the DC Rock and Roll half marathon, which I'm super excited about in March, which is crazy. That's like less than 2 months away now. I actually convinced my husband, Robs, to run it with me, which I'm so excited about. He was like, you know what? I'll do it with you. And I was like, so excited. But my competitive inside me, and I've shared this before with you, is like, we can't just like run. Like, you and Nolan do such a great job of like running, and like, I don't know, I just like see you guys, I'm like, oh, they're so cute. Rob and I like literally want to kill each other. Like, we're like, it's just the competitive athlete inside of us. He started running last week, and he's already running faster than me.
I wondered about this because I know that usually, because we're always talking, that Robbie bikes when you run. And the other day on, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, you posted his and hers pre-run fuel. And I was like, is he running? What's going on here? So I had questions about this. So that's exciting. That'll be fun. I know it'll be very competitive and maybe a little bit more competitive than you originally thought the race was going to be or training was going to be, but I love it.
I'm really excited. Every single day, like, we're like, it's going to be party pace. Like, we're doing it for fun. Like, we're just doing it to see DC and see my sister. But then he like brought out the Theragun last night and was like using it. And I was like, here we go. Maybe training is going to be modified. I'm not sure, but I just thought I would kind of share that update for training plan for this week. So what about you? You have your race this month, like almost this week.
Yeah, it's this week, this weekend, I guess you could say. So as far as training goes this week, I typically do a couple shorter runs at the beginning of the week. I'll probably be done with exercise either Thursday or Friday. Just take things really easy. Make sure that I'm not like expending too much energy because I want to feel fresh on race day. So I'll give myself a couple of days after taking, easier days and then run the race on Sunday. And that's it.
Do you do a shakeout run the day before?
Typically I don't. I like to do like a little bit longer of a walk, not a long walk by any means, but just to loosen up. But like, I typically have never done like a true shakeout run. I know some people really love to do it, but just what works better for me is like, I'll just go on like a 2-3 mile walk the day before and that's it. I'm really focusing this week on like making sure that my fueling is really great leading into race day so that like I'm as energized as possible.
Ooh, give us a couple of tips before we jump into today's episode. What are you focusing on?
This is the week that I don't match my typical like running performance plates to the time I spend exercising. I'm utilizing the performance plates that look what we would consider more of like a game day or a race day plate way more often in comparison to like what I'm usually doing. So carbohydrates are increasing even though my exercise level or my extra energy output is less than what it typically is or what I would typically use that plate for. And then I've shared this before on past podcasts, but I always have a plan B with carbohydrate because I tend to get a little bit of a nervous stomach going into race. Even if it is a party pace for me, that's just how my brain and body works. So I usually have Gatorades and some type of like a liquid carbohydrate to help me get in a little bit more energy leading into the actual race day that I can utilize to make sure that I'm still getting in enough, and also helps with hydration, which is never a bad thing. And that's kind of like my non-negotiables. I always have Gatorade, plenty of Gatorade leading into the race day.
Love it.
Today, we're actually talking a lot about period recovery. Even though we are only like 3 weeks into the new year, we both have been getting a lot of DMs, a lot of questions about period recovery and people trying to get their period back in the new year, that being one of their New Year's resolutions or New Year's goals. We get a lot of questions about, how long is this going to take? Do I need to stop exercising? Do I need to stop running? Am I going to need to gain weight? What does this look like? So today we're talking about how to get your period back by April if you currently are working towards period recovery in 2025.
I'm so excited. This is one of our favorite things to talk about. So I'm so excited to dive into it today.
If you were someone who didn't have your period right now, what would be like your top 3 things for people to do in order to start working towards period recovery by April?
Oh, such a good question. First off, I think April's a great goal. And I think that would probably be like, might be my first recommendation is to set realistic goals with your timeline. A lot of the time we are used to like instant gratification because of what we see on the internet. And a lot of people think, okay, if I just increase my calories or I increase my energy intake or I increase my carbohydrates for a week, I'm going to get my period back. Or I'm in this huge energy surplus. Like, why haven't I got my period back? And it takes time. And I know that's probably something that a lot of people listening don't want to hear, but it took time to lose your period, so it's going to take time to get it back. And a lot of our athletes in our period recovery program, they start to get their period back 2 to 4 months. If we look at the schedule, if you look at the calendar, right, like April is perfectly in that time period. So first off, thing that I want you to focus on is setting that realistic goal. And that's why today we're talking about how you can get your period back by April.
I love that idea of setting a realistic goal. Like we talked about a couple podcasts ago, how it's really important to kind of set smart goals and set attainable things that are timely. So making sure that you are walking into period recovery with like a realistic expectation of how long this is going to take. I also love the idea of like, you need to be potentially in an energy surplus for a longer period of time than just like a week. I know we get a lot of questions that are like, I've eaten 2,800 calories or some number of calories for some number of days. Like, why hasn't something changed? So what would you say is like the timeline for if we're not seeing progress with making some type of a change that we would need to potentially change more?
I usually say like 3 months. So if you've been doing something for 3 months and things have not changed, it's time to readjust your strategy. When you work in our period recovery program, we're monitoring things like very closely. It's a very comprehensive program. That's because we want to see what's working so that we can replicate it. And that's something I think is really important and probably ties into like my second recommendation if we look at those top 3 tips. And that second tip is to start small with small sustainable changes and take data points on those changes, right? Like, okay, how do I feel after I make this small modification? Is it stressful? Is it sustainable? Is it easy? How does it make me feel? How does my training feel? And slowly begin to progress from those small changes. Something that our athletes always share in our period program is they're like so shocked when they look back at where they started, when they first started with us. They're always like, I can't believe I was like eating that much or I was surviving off of that little. But because there's been so much small sustainable change, they haven't really like noticed that until they go back and see where they started from the beginning.
I think this brings up such a great point, even when we're thinking about like a lot of nutritional goals or even athletic goals, is that a lot of from like the day to day, we don't see that change. But if you take running, for example, we might start running at a pace that's around like 9:30. And then all of a sudden you do all of this training, all of this speed work, all of this endurance work. And all of a sudden you're running, 750 miles. And we didn't do that jump in a day. Like it took a long time and we had to make progressive steps in order to get from one to the other. And the same thing kind of sounds like it's happening here. I know that period recovery is so individualized. Nutrition is so individualized, but could you give us like an example of what some of those small steps that you've had successful period recovery with athletes, like they've implemented that has worked really well for like a small change?
I love starting off with like making sure that we're fueling around our workouts. So like bookending our training session with the right pre and post workout nutrients. Because not only is this going to help with your energy availability and with your period, but it's also going to help with your recovery and your performance. We look at female athletes, even if they are with a regular menstrual cycle, they're going to do so much better fed versus fasted. So even if you are somebody that's still training during your period recovery, or you want to make sure that you're optimizing your performance as well, really making sure that we're prioritizing what you're doing before and after is going to help from a health and a performance standpoint.
I think this is one of my favorite changes that we've seen athletes make because it's one that you can typically feel some type of a change almost immediately. That pre-workout or pre-run fuel can really make a big impact on how much energy you feel like you have or how you feel like your performance was during that run or that workout. So it is one that we can kind of see a faster outcome than some of the other nutritional changes that we make.
It's honestly so crazy how fast that almost like your return on investment is with that change. And that's also where I really like to start because period recovery over a 4-month period of time can feel kind of long or overwhelming or daunting. But when you're making small changes that are giving you some positive results during that journey, it makes it a little bit easier to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we can utilize again to monitor like the change in the progress that we're making. What would be your third tip?
My third tip doesn't necessarily have to do with nutrition, but it has to do with mindset. Mindset and how you're navigating your journey in comparison to what other people are doing can be one of the most challenging parts about period recovery. So working with a dietitian to get a one-on-one plan is going to be so valuable, but also making sure that you're doing some mindset work with this, because a lot of the advice that you are going to be hearing, or maybe some of the changes that you're going to be making to get your period back, might go against some of the like trendy nutrition that you're seeing out there. So something that we always are talking about is, increasing carbohydrates, increasing fats, and decreasing protein, because a lot of the time athletes are eating too much protein and it's blocking you from getting some of these other essential nutrients. And that can be really challenging from a mindset perspective, because it's completely opposite of a lot of the advice that you're seeing out there when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah, right now it's super popular for everyone to say you need to eat, X amount of grams of protein per pound of body weight. Usually it's like almost 1-to-1, which for a lot of athletes is too much already, but especially for an athlete that's working for period recovery, because protein is very satiating. We don't then often have enough room for some of the other essential nutrients that we need to be prioritizing in order to work towards period recovery. So there's so many things there that I think are so valuable when it comes to working towards period recovery for a female athlete.
Yes, it is mind-boggling how many recommendations are out there for protein and how we've put such a health halo on protein, and it's really preventing a lot of athletes from being like their healthiest potential.
I think that's so interesting that you say a health halo around protein, because that's really what it is. But, we think of protein being something that's going to help with muscle protein synthesis, something's going to help with muscle building. What we often overlook is that without the other components of like a balanced performance plate, we don't have that. Like we can't do that. We need carbohydrate, we need our micronutrients from color, we need healthy fats and all of those other things in order for you to accomplish the goals that you have. So it's not like just protein is going to be what leads to muscle building. And I think that that's a common, overlooked portion of that, pushing protein.
Yeah, it's such a common misconception, because when we look at our body really prioritizes its functioning, especially when we look at recovery. And skeletal muscle is, I would say, lower on the ladder compared to some of the other recovery processes that are happening in the body. And if we don't have other nutrients in our body to make sure that we're optimizing and recovering those other processes efficiently, we're not going to be stimulating muscle protein synthesis to the best of our ability.
It's almost like working backwards.
Yes. And there's such a focus on like skeletal muscle protein synthesis like on the internet that we're forgetting about a lot of those other things. And it's preventing us from being healthy, honestly.
That health halo kind of almost extends to like a fixation on a certain thing or a certain process within our body. And we forget that like in order to be healthy, in order to, accomplish the goals that we have to kind of look at it from a whole picture perspective and make sure that like from a well-rounded standpoint, everything is taken care of.
Exactly. And it's a trend right now, and it can be really hard to kind of step back and see that. But, 20-ish years ago, like we hated fat, and now there's a huge, sometimes health halo around fat and, hormone health and different things like that. And it kind of it goes in phases, but that's why we always talk about the why at RBSN. And it's really important to understand like the why and the true foundation when it comes to fueling.
Right. Because if we're just following something simply because it was a trend that we saw online or a trend that we, our buddy in the gym is using or something like that can be really, really almost dangerous for us, because that doesn't allow for some of the other things that need to happen.
I think just to kind of end it out, right? Those are, 3 tips to really get you started on your journey. And after you've been practicing those and you're working your way through this period recovery journey, like definitely reach out. We have our period recovery program that's 4 months long, and it's designed to help you get your period back and also optimize your performance while you're doing it. If you are somebody who's listening and you've been trying some of these tips and you are really, focused and dedicated on getting your period back by April, reach out and apply to our program so that we can get started and get your period back.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Eat More Carbs podcast. If you have questions about period recovery or just about nutrition in general, please feel free to reach out to Reilly and I. You can find Reilly on Instagram at easy.sports.nutrition. You can find me at jenna.fisher.nutrition. You can always leave comments on this podcast too as well, and we'll be sure to get back with you. Please make sure you rate, subscribe, and review. And as always, remember to eat more carbs.